That was me. Oh, we're ready to start.
We're ready.
Hey, Peter, we all set up or? Good. All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Oh my goodness, that's a different sound. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Law of New Jersey, notice of this July 18th, 2023 meeting of the Bridgewater-Raritan Regional Board of Education was posted electronically on the district website and provided on July 14th, 2023 by sending a 48-hour notice to the Courier News, Star Ledger, Bridgewater Township Clerk, Raritan Borough Clerk, and by posting on the bulletin board in the Harmon V. Wade Administration Building. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Stars, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Lochran.
Oh, I'm first. Yes.
Mr. Joshi. Ms. Calistri.
Here.
Mr. Pepe.
Here.
Ms. Freelander.
Here.
Ms. Levitt.
Here.
Ms. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Walker.
Here.
Mr. Singer.
Here. We are up to item 5, closed session, whereas discussion by the board is required on matters that are exception to the requirement that a public body holds its meetings in public. And whereas the topics for discussion are BREA grievance and personnel matter, supervisor candidate, whereas it is expected that the details of the discussion may be made public as soon as the issue may be acted upon publicly, be it resolved that the board enters into closed session at this time.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. We are in closed session. banged it a little too early. No. All right. Okay, we are back in open session, and our first item is our superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Singer. So I hope everyone's doing well, enjoying our summer break. We're already 4 weeks into it. So first I want to start by welcoming everyone to our new home here at the Wade Building, which over the past few months has had some minor renovations and, is certainly a more cozy environment than we had previously. So as we all know, the success of our district lies in our people and programs. Every year in a district of this size, we must replace numerous openings due to retirements, resignations, etc. So I want to start by applauding the efforts of our supervisors, principals, and Dr. Fonder's HR office by moving with expediency and ensuring the quality of instruction remains at a high level throughout the district. Right, this is the busiest time of the year for the HR department, and it's really the most critical part of the year, right? Because we want to make sure that that any opening is filled with the most talented people we can get to work here at Bridgewater-Raritan. And I want to thank Dr. Fonder, HR department, as well as other folks throughout the district for really helping us compile quite a list on the personnel agenda tonight. So as far as programs, Ms. Jones' curriculum department and supervisors are renewing and updating curricula as we speak to ensure adherence to state standards, mandates, etc. There's a ton of work going on, but I wanted to specifically comment on the rollout of a program that's going to have a major impact on the lives of students and families throughout our district, and that's the ESL program. So over the past decade, the number of ELs in the Bridgewater-Raritan district has more than doubled, with more than 100 new enrollments during the 2022-23 school year. However, for many years, only 3 of our 7 primary schools offered ESL services. There was an increase in parent refusals, with 45% of parents refusing services because they wanted their children to attend their home school. And this was a particular problem at our primary schools. So as we know, we're recapping a lot of the work that was done over the last year. So during the 2022-23 school year, our district completed a comprehensive evaluation and review of the English as a Second Language program, ESL. This included examining the current ESL program model and implementation of ESL services, reviewing research and best practices, state and federal codes and guidelines, and surveying our stakeholders. One major outcome is that in the upcoming school year, ESL services are going to be offered in every single building throughout the district. At this point, letters have gone home to families explaining that services will be provided in home schools, and currently our district translator is following up with phone calls regarding these services. Several families who refused services in the past because they didn't want their child to attend another school or be transported across town have happily accepted services for their children this coming school year. So when we talk about equity and accessibility, this is it right here. Let's think, we had families not accepting services because it meant that their child would have to hop on a bus and go across town. So I'd like to thank Karen Jones and the entire community, her entire staff, for reviewing this program and providing much needed service to our community. This is just one example of the excellent work taken on by this team to provide equitable outcomes for all students within the district. Next, although people and programs are the cornerstones of our success, it's evident that we need proper facilities to support our programming. So quite a bit of work is occurring over the summer, which actually the majority is not a part of the referendum. So I'm going to ask my colleague, Mr. Stars, to update us with some of our new technology. We have some photos just to keep the community in touch with what's going on. And honestly, if you drive around town, you see a lot of activity. And let me turn it over to Mr. Stars.
Thank you. This is a very busy summer for the facilities department and for contractors that we have doing a ton of work along with our custodial staff as well. So I'll just run through a bunch of pictures here that show some of the work that's being done. This first slide is a room over in building 200 at the high school, which is going to be the new home for the robotics team. We're going to be moving they had their temporary home here at Wade Administration Building for a couple years, and now we have created a spot for them over at the high school.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Peter.
Okay.
I always do this. Maybe I'm sitting too close to Barry. I'm sorry. Little joke. Sorry, Barry. No, but anyhow, if we recall, during Tropical Storm Ida, the robotics team, they had a workshop over in Boundbrook, and they were completely wiped out. So their equipment, everything was lost, and it was just a temporary solution. But we said, look, we can clear out some space here for you, that until we find a permanent home, you could use this space. But obviously, it's not ideal. In any school activity, you would prefer kids to leave their classes after school and go right there to the facility. So I want to thank Peter and his folks for making this a reality. So the big move will come in 2 weeks for the robotics team to take some of their things over, and we're going to be taking care of that room so they can hook up their equipment and do what they need to do. But at least they can have a space that they call their own.
This is that same room, just a different angle of it. Next, we are doing there's a bunch of two food service rooms at the Family Consumer Science rooms over at the Building 200 as well, where they're getting new cabinetry to replace the ones that were well over 2 decades old. To show some of the work there, and these are actually older pictures. The contractor was there today installing the countertops and cutting out the sink holes and the like. We have a bunch of painting going on this summer. This is JFK hallways that were repainted. We also have Eisenhower that was repainted, or is in the midst of being repainted, but JFK is done now. The hallways are done. These are 2 pictures of that. We have all the outside buildings of the high school being repainted. So they're in the midst of that, but they've completed the majority of them, and now they're working on the 200, 300, 300, and the 500 are the only ones left. So these are pictures of the new painted walls that we had we began this earlier this year, where we did the 100 and 800 building. Oops, that was too quick. Oh, all right. Sorry about that. So this is the last picture of the high school. We have library renovations going on at 5 of our primary schools. This is the library at Bradley Gardens, where we had to remove the tile, and we're also doing actually redesign of this library to create a hallway. If you ever were at Bradley Gardens, the library was kind of in the center of the building, and you had to walk through the library to get from certain classrooms. So this redesign will include a hallway where library instruction won't be interfered with by traveling to one side of the building to the other. This is another picture of that. As you know, we purchased close to $500,000 worth of furniture, classroom desks and chairs, student desks and chairs. And so the main middle school and high school and Hillside are being put together by our maintenance staff, and the primary schools are going to be done by the vendor. So this is the middle school, where our staff has already put together the numerous, close to 800 pieces of furniture between the high school, middle school, and Hillside. One of the bigger projects that is more noticeable to everybody is the paving of both the high school loop road and the Crim parking area, playground parking lot area, and also drainage work over at Crim School. So the next couple pictures are of those. This is the high school loop road. On the left, there's a field called the Canada Field. That's more of a practice field, but there's parking in front of that. That is now becoming permanent parking as opposed to stone parking, so it's going to be asphalt there. And this is the curb work that was done. At the same time, we're taking care of sidewalks that needed to be replaced and have be ADA accessible. Oops. Again, this is the back of the 1000 building over at the high school. This is Turf 2. This whole area will be paved as part of the project as well. And then we jump to Crim, which is where are most active right now, actually the contractor. It's one contractor, but this is the playground area, parking lot area as you enter the school that is being worked on with improved drainage. And this is a picture of that drainage work that is being done. Again, this is the Crim School playground area. And this is the exit of the gymnasium, if you're familiar with Crim, into an area that is also used for playground purposes, recess purposes. So those are the pictures we currently have. I believe we'll be giving a more detailed and hopefully more finished products at the August meeting as well.
Thank you, Mr. Stars. So finally, I would like to give a shout out to the following members of the Bridgewater-Raritan community. Casey Murphy, a Bridgewater-Raritan grad from 2014, is playing for the United States women's national team in the World Cup, which starts this Friday, July 21st in New Zealand. Erica Maltsev was named to the 2022-23 Scholastic Girls Swimming All-American team for accomplishments in the 200 individual medley. She's the school record holder and will enter her senior year at Bridgewater-Raritan High School. Kieran Masood, a 5th grade English language arts teacher at Hillside Intermediate School, just returned from a 2-week trip in June to Uruguay. She was a recipient of a Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program award that the United States Department of State sponsors. The Fulbright program has been in existence for 75 years. And with that, I'll turn the microphone over to Mr. Singer.
I don't have a report today other than to hope that all of our students and staff are enjoying their summer, and we will see them sooner than we think. Mr. Walker, anything on the Vice President's report?
Yeah, I do a little bit on the calendar update. We have one item in June we didn't finish, was the update of second of third annual pending legal matters, so we get that in August if we can. Coming up in July, we are in our planning stages for next year, so we develop the BOE goals, Board of Education goals, and usually that return, and we have a retreat sometime. Did we ever schedule that? You sent some emails about it, but we didn't come to a final on that. And then going into August, through the BOE goals, we approve the superintendent goals. We approve the annual statement of assurance, the SOA for the comprehensive equity plan, and we have the public presentation of the supplemental use policy for computers. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. We're going to move on to our committee reports. Up first is academic with Mrs. Levitt.
Next meeting is August 9th at 6 p.m. virtually.
We didn't move that, right? I thought, wasn't there August?
No, we're going to add one on
Thank
the
you.
29th.
All right, then I need to correct my schedule. Thank you, Mrs. Levitt. Mrs. Friedlander with Community Relations.
Our next meeting is August 11th at 8:45 a.m. virtually.
Okay. Mr. Walker with Finance, Facilities, and Transportation.
Yeah, we're here 2 nights in a row. We met here last night at 5 o'clock, you know. And in attendance was Miss Lee, Mr. Pepe, Mr. Singer, Mr. Stars, and Mr. Beers. At first, we addressed items on the business agenda for this evening. Some notable ones talk about it as an Eagle Scout project that we approved. It'll be on the agenda, approving for redoing the Ray Garden at the high school. We took some items. We talked about some of the different purchases we're doing, and also the change orders in the resolution. There are some of the projects which Mr. Stars showed that we're adding some areas, paving some more areas, paving the sidewalk from the high school to the bridge by the solar parking lot. Some of those areas were added. Like Mr. Stars says, there's a lot going on in this district, which is fantastic. So you can see that, and I think every school is touched but a few. And this is nothing compared, I think, what will be coming into referendum projects. We had a conversation about purchase of used buses. Mr. Stars informed us at the committee that the upcoming bus bid that the district was going to participate in, lead times for new buses are take about over a year right now. And the Somerset County Educational Services Commission decided to discontinue busing, so their buses are being sold through bid through Hunter County Educational Services Division, and that bid is Thursday, or you put it tomorrow. So should the district be awarded any buses, that purchase would be retroactively approved in August. It's a good value. I can give you a little report out on Ed Services a little bit. Other matters, we discussed the update in the referendum and project schedule. Some of the items that are coming up, the architect's hopeful to bid out windows for 7 buildings by the end of August. The field house reservation bids by the end of October and November timeframe. Security vestibules will be reviewed over the next several weeks, and the engineers will begin the mechanical surveys at 3 primary schools for the HVA systems. Mr. Beers also brought up another topic, is bringing up Basselin Field. Although there's a lot of projects happening through the referendum with Basselin Field, there's still a lot of need there. So he's engaged the architect in doing some work there. So we're talking about needs to address outside the referendum. There's no recommendations on that. He'll report back to us on that time. We set our next meeting dates, as you can see in the minutes, and we adjourned at 6:02 p.m. Any questions I forgot to ask during my report? I apologize. Any questions?
Actually, I have one. So how many buses would we be purchasing if it does go through?
Mr. Stars.
2, 3, 4, 5?
It was 1 van, a small bus, and 2
We're putting
large
bids
buses.
on 4 vehicles, so.
4, okay.
Well, best case scenario is that.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Ms. Lochran with the committee formerly known as HIB.
We met on Friday. In attendance was myself, Ms. Calistri, Mr. Walker, Mr. Beers, and actually that was it. Mr. Singer was not able to make it. You probably remember around January we started discussing changing over HIB committee from an ongoing standing committee to an ad hoc committee. Because at that time we were just reviewing reports and we had implemented Hipster and we were starting to see a change in more consistency. So we discussed the potential of changing the name from HIB to, we discussed a couple names, but School Climate Committee came up as the agreed upon recommendation, and that we would remain an ad hoc committee that convenes when necessary to discuss student conduct data as well as programs and initiatives that address concerns about student wellness. We discussed the climate survey very briefly, mostly about the need for to reach everybody for equity in the district in terms of response. Sorry, were there any questions?
I actually did have a question because that's what I get for not being able to attend. With it being the school climate committee and discussing the upcoming climate survey, is the plan to have both community relations and this committee discuss it, or is it still going to be under community relations?
I don't believe that we fully worked that one out. We had a very high level meeting, just kind of throwing, there was a lot of information discussed, but it was all very high level as opposed to diving deep. So I imagine that there's further discussion on that one.
Sure, okay.
And what I didn't note was that the first the overall topic that we discussed was like objectives and goals of the committee. I think those are things that like we still have to work out in the upcoming meetings. So we did discuss the Bright program, which is a program for kids that may not be on the graduation track that they should be on, and it's an alternative for them to to have access to other programs that meet their needs. We talked about graduation rates. We talked about the national and district-wide wellness trends. Were there any questions? I have a lot here. I'm sorry. Okay. We talked about the need for consistency across the district, and I feel like this is a topic that's come up. So I wanted to open up in case there were questions or comments on that.
So, I'm going to ask this question. When we were talking about consistency in the past, one of the biggest things came from guidance, actually, with the Start with Hello program. So would that be something that would be looked at in terms of making sure that there is a program that's not just being used in one school, but it's being used across the board?
I would probably defer to Ms. Jones or Mr. Beers.
And that was just an example.
So that's absolute. So with the creation of our new position that we just discussed tonight, that's exactly what we'll be talking about, is how to create some consistency, make sure that we have a program that's comprehensive, vertically and horizontally articulated. And yes, we should be able to know that, like we discussed earlier, that by the time students funnel together into the middle school or high school, they've all had the similar opportunities,
Shared experience
through similar programs or the same program.
Was there any discussion at all about reforming the community health and wellness committee? And though I know we've had many before my time on the board, I don't know. Rather than just a specific issue ad hoc committee, but like an ongoing wellness for all levels.
I can say that I was unaware of that committee, so from that perspective, no, but it's probably a good topic of conversation.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. So we also, so the substance abuse policy meeting took place on Thursday, and the first reading will be in August. That's just an FYI. And also, if you take a look at the minutes as well as the agenda, there's a list of very informative documents that's worth your time to check out. I won't read them off, but it's specifically around code of conduct and discipline and an incident log. Our next meeting will be in September, and we are hoping to review the I already forgot the name of it, the SSDS of the end of last year. And that was it.
Thank you, Mrs. Lochran. Any other questions for Mrs. Lochran? All right. Up next is legislative with Mrs. Levitt.
Next meeting is to be determined.
That brings us to personnel with Mr. Doshi.
Yes, so. Hello? You can hear me, right? Okay. We met on July 11th at 5 o'clock. In attendance were myself, Mrs. Calistri, Mrs. Friedlander, Mr. Singer, and Dr. Ponder. The first item on the agenda was the personnel addendum, which we have today for approval, and the committee supported the action items listed. Item number 2 was the review of the comprehensive equity plan and related district policy number 1523. The committee discussed the comprehensive equity plan and policy, and no action was taken. Item number 3 is the update on recruitment and hiring. Dr. Fonder provided an update on recruitment and hiring for the 2023-2024 school year. The district recruitment efforts have been successful. The district administrators are interviewing and hiring candidates for positions available next year. No action was taken. Item number 4 was we discussed the upcoming committee meeting dates. Committee members discussed the dates for the second half of the year. The list of the meeting dates are included in the minutes. And if you want to write them down, it's August 15th, September 19th, October 17th, November 13th, and December 5th. All meetings will be virtual and at 5 p.m. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Joshi. Are there any liaison or delegate reports?
I actually have one. I'll explain some of the Somerset County Educational Services. I'm the representative there, and we had to make a decision to discontinue our busing services this year as we felt the pain of busing and the loss of drivers. So I want to, as the board, for that board, speaker of that board, thank Bridgewater for the patronage in the last 3 or 4 years. So I thank that, and it's been, you were a good area. We enjoyed busing the kids, but it's something, a strategic decision we made. We started about 20 years ago with 200 drivers and 200 buses, and we were down to 18 drivers and busing about 24 routes, and we had 9 drivers retire this year, so we're down to 9. So the business model did not work, and educational services functions both as a school board and a business. So we are revenue driven only. So we don't get any tax dollars from the state or the county or anywhere. So all our services are paid through fee for services. So it's a business decision. But as Mr. Stars, there's opportunities for others to take over. I know he's talked to some of our candidates who left. It was very disappointing when you have to lay people off and change their professions, but and move on. But they all have landed. So I just want to thank the district, and that's the update there.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Although they're discontinuing the busing services, they're continuing their bus route consultation services?
Yeah, we're still, so we don't have the busing, but we do the routing and coordination of special education busing, and we have an alternate academy program and career services academy in an alternate route for students with special needs.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, we are up to item number 10, which is our public comment session. This is open to the public and a public hearing on the proposed superintendent contract. So these are on action items only, which includes that contract. Individuals and/or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests regarding the following action items to the Board of Education at this time. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. Please be advised that a video recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website, and we ask that you provide your name and your residence.
Check 1, 2.
There we go. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Dear members of the Board of Education in the Bridgewater-Raritan School District, good evening, everyone. My name is Xinqi. I'm a resident of 62 Schaefer Road at Bridgewater. My son is an upcoming grade 3 student at Milton Elementary School. I'm here to express our collectively concerns regarding the lack of transparency and fairness about the new criteria for the AI program placement this year. I want to start talking about sort of the chaos surrounding the AI program for the past 2 years.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt you at this point. This is on action items only, so only on the things that the board is going to be voting on right now. There's a second public comment period later on, which is about anything, and you're welcome to come back at that time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries. We appreciate it.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, if there are no public comment on action items, I'm going to close that portion of public comment. Seeing none. All right, we're going to move on. That portion of public comment is closed. We're up now to item number 11, the approval of minutes.
So moved.
Are there any corrections that need to be made? Okay. Mr. Starsh?
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Could you turn off, I'm sorry, could you turn off the microphone at the podium? Thanks, Mike.
Yes.
Ms. Calistri,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Ms. Freelander,
Yes.
Ms. Levitt,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. We're up to item number 12, the approval of action items. Up first are Personnel 2401 and Personnel 2402.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I would like to make a comment. I think in this personnel item, there's okay. In this personnel agenda, we have personnel 2204. That is the superintendent contract. I would like to make a few comments about this. First of all, what does this contract mean? It means that we're having another 5 years starting from this year, that the school district is, in this contract, it will be providing promise to employment for another 5 years. This means that even if something doesn't work out, our school district will be liable for 5 years contract pay. At the end of that is another 5 years of automatic renewal unless a written notice was provided 1 year before or sometime before as specified in the contract. I think under this contract, however, the employee can walk away without penalty though. What this means that this is locking in our school district for a liability. From a management and responsibility for our community and our taxpayers' point of view, here is what I see. We're glad that Mr. Beers was able to work diligently with us for the past almost 2 years. And thank you for your service. For another 5-year contract, however, I'm not certain at this point this is the time. Because typically, the contract at a normal school district or typical school district will be opened about 18 months before it expires. So we are now not yet halfway through of our current contract. So I look forward to continued progress and consistency of our superintendent's work over a longer period of time to justify a renegotiation and the extension of the contract. In the meantime, however, I want to specify that I do look forward to work with you to complete the current contract term. And thank you for your work again. Thank you.
Any other comments? I just want to note one thing with regard to the automatic renewal. That is part of New Jersey state law, so it's standard in that way. If there are no other comments or
Yeah, I have a comment. In terms of, I guess, I think continuity is good business. I think when COVID upticks closed other districts, our district didn't close. When floods infiltrated our infrastructure and sewage was in our gymnasiums, it was managed, it was handled, and it was handled in a pretty extraordinarily quick amount of time. You know, and the technology infrastructure that we had when in the beginning of Mr. Beers's term here, it was I don't know. It needed its own disaster recovery. Right. So that was like the red carpet that was rolled out within the first couple months of him coming into the district. And I feel like when you're looking at emergency situations like that, and schools were kept open and they were prioritized to be kept open, I think that we can look at the proven ability to keep schools open as proof that of business continuity, and I think in any business that that's a good plan to have in order to have a sense of not just security but stability in the district, particularly when we're rolling out all of these projects that are part of the referendum. So that was all I wanted to say about that.
Jen, I will reiterate what you said, and I wasn't going to do this until later, but I'm going to anyhow. The position of superintendent in Bridgewater-Raritan is not an easy one. I think everyone can recognize that. It is true that Mr. Beers has only been here for 2 years. However, as in those 2 years, as Ms. Lochran mentioned, he's faced more than most superintendents have dealt with in 5 years. He brought the district through what we hope is the end of COVID. He was confronted with never before seen destruction in 3 different schools. As the result of Ida, he was faced with a transportation crisis that we're still dealing with, but somehow we got all of the kids transported and changed into a 3-tier system without much of an issue. He led a public relations campaign leading up to the referendum, which required an immense amount of work on his part, and the scope of work for the referendum is incredible. And he did all of that on top of his regular duties as superintendent of a high-achieving district with over 8,000 students and 1,000 staff plus. Mr. Beers has shown his ability to handle tough situations that the district faces on a daily basis, and he has kept focused on improving equity, as we talked about before, programming, and facilities throughout the district. And I look forward to seeing what we can accomplish in the future under Mr. Beers' leadership. If there are no other comments, I'm going to call for a roll.
Ms. Lochran.
Yes.
Mr. Joshi.
Yes.
Ms. Calistri.
Yes on 2401, and I'm going to abstain on 2402.
Mr. Pepe.
Yes.
Ms. Friedlander.
Yes.
Ms. Levitt.
Yes on 2401, abstain on 2402.
Ms. Lee.
Yes on 2401, no to 2402.
Mr. Walker.
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Going to move on to curriculum 2401.
I'd just point out that we have another hire.
I'm sorry, I did it again. Yes,
That's
you're
okay.
right.
In attendance, who was just approved.
Mr. Beers or Dr. Feinberg?
The district has a position as a K-8 counseling and wellness supervisor. This was part of the personnel addendum. The board met Lisa Latarula in closed session, and she went through the interview process. So she's here this evening. We're excited to have her join the district in that role, and it's something that we think will be valuable in harnessing the talent of our counselors and our other school staff, and really bringing the unity that was talked about in one of the committee reports to the forefront in finding the best practices and not just kind of grabbing at whatever's the latest thing that's out there, but having a really coherent, cohesive program for our students that prepares them for middle school, that prepares them for high school and beyond. So welcome to the district.
Congratulations.
And Bruce, I promised that you would get a picture with you, that you'd be taking a picture.
He's off his game.
Not with you, that you'd be.
He's off his game. Yeah.
Like flat Bruce.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. Flat Bruce. A white wall in the back.
White wall. You don't want the TV. You can't have the TV. White wall.
Do the white wall, not the TV. Take direction.
We're now going to move forward with curriculum 2401, for which I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Stars.
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Ms. Calistri,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Ms. Freelander,
Yes.
Ms. Levitt,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. We're up to business 2401 through business 2414.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? I will just comment in that thank you to Alex Uhas, who is going to be working as an Eagle for his Eagle Scout project on the garden outside of one of the BRHS buildings, outside of the 800 building area. So thank you for your dedication to our district and our community. If there are no other questions or comments, Mr. Stars.
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes to all, abstain on 2402.
Ms. Calistri,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Ms. Freelander,
Yes.
Ms. Levitt,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Abstain on 2404. Yes to rest.
Mr. Walker,
I'm going to abstain on 2410 and 2414, yes to the others.
Mr. Singer.
Yes. The motion passes. We're up to Special Services 2401 through Special Services 2403.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions? Anything we need to take into closed session? Seeing none, Mr. Stars.
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Ms. Calistri,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Ms. Freelander,
Yes.
Ms. Levitt,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, and the motion passes. We're up to other 2401 and other 2402.
So moved.
Second.
Does anyone need anything taken into closed session?
This is special.
This is other, did I miss something?
Student special services.
I thought it,
He did that.
I thought we did.
I thought that we just did
this
special
other?
services.
You did special.
this is other 2401 and other 2402. We did
Gotcha.
special services, right?
I got
This is HIBs.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that anyone needs to take into closed, we can do that. But if there is not, Mr. Stars.
Ms. Lochran,
I will abstain on 249538.
249538.
Yes, I apologize. That's all I wrote down. And yes to everything else.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Ms. Calistri,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Ms. Freelander,
Yes.
Ms. Levitt,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. Finally, we're up to policy 2401.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments on the policies before us? Seeing none, Mr. Stars.
Ms. Lochran,
Yes.
Mr. Joshi,
Yes.
Ms. Calistri,
Yes.
Mr. Pepe,
Yes.
Ms. Freelander,
Yes.
Ms. Levitt,
Yes.
Ms. Lee,
Yes.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mr. Singer.
Yes, the motion passes. We're up to our second public comment period. Individuals and/or groups are invited to present their concerns, comments, and requests to the Board of Education at this time for any matters. In accordance with board policy, members of the public are allotted one opportunity to address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes during this period of the meeting. Please be advised that a video recording of this meeting will be posted on the district's website, and we do request that you provide your name and your residence for the record. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Xinqi, and I'm sorry. Is it on? Okay. Okay. So my name is Xinqi, and I'm a resident of 62 Schiffer Road at Bridgewater. My son is an upcoming grade 3 student at Milltown Elementary School. I'm here to express our collective concerns regarding the lack of transparency and fairness about the new criteria for the AI program placement this year. I want to start talking about the sort of chaos surrounding the AI program for the past 2 years. Last year, in the 2022 to 2023 school year, the Torrent test was introduced as a part of the AI criteria Firstly, none of the parents knew why the Torrance was chosen. And most importantly, the shocking result was no student in the whole school district from all the grades received any points in the Torrance test. Clearly, this change in criteria was a huge mistake because of the lack of transparency in the decision to include the Torrance test. The lack of transparency has continued into this year from the 2023 to 2024 AI program. At the parent orientation, there were no clear criteria mentioned as had been done in previous years. Then after the test result came out, we realized that again, non-transparent criteria were used to make the decision for AI program placement. What I mean here by this is that the school district only wants the top 3 to 5% of students to be in the AI program. So without publicly citing the criteria, the school district can manipulate the data to cut the students to meet the 3 to 5% target and limit the number of students that can be enrolled. Here is what I want to point it out. Firstly, there's no law stating that the target enrollment must be 3 to 5% of students. That's all qualified students should be allowed in the AI program. Secondly, based on the AI program for the last 10 years or longer at Bridgewater, there has been 2 to 3 AI classes per each grade, which represents the top 6 to 10% of students. For what reason do we need to cut the educational opportunities available to our students to only the top 3 to 5%? Secondly, I want to address the absence of fairness. What we are not against the school district's use of the new criteria for the AI program. However, the new criteria should be phased in. For grade 1 students, the new criteria should be used, but for grade 2 to grade 4 students, since their peers from previous years were admitted into the AI program based on the previous standard, these students should be subject to the same standard. This is because the new criteria is much higher than the previous criteria. So if we were to retrospectively apply the new criteria to all the students previously admitted to the AI program, how many students from previous years would still meet the qualifications? Furthermore, considering no changes have been made in the AI program regarding teacher and the teaching content, we would want to know why we need a higher criteria for our students that are at the same level of the previous year's students. This is inherently unfair. Lastly, after 3 years of phasing in the new criteria, all the grades can use that new criteria. In conclusion, we must address transparency and fairness in AI program enrollment. This is the key to the success of the AI program. So the most number of qualified students can be given the educational opportunities that they deserve. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Wei Wang, and a resident of Bridgewater, living at 34 Purcell Road. Today I'm here. I would like to take the time to address my concerns on the referendum voted on March 14th of this year. When I attended one meeting regarding this topic, the impacts of the referendum on test rate were not clearly delivered. Even on this flyer, I got it from the presentation, the meeting I attended. Only half of the story on tax consequences were stated. For example, if question 1, renovations, is not passed, what is the impact on our tax rate? Will it decrease? None of this is answered here, stated here. If the tax rate decreases, if number one, innovations are not passed, and this information is released to the public, would this have changed the voting results? That is a question for you to consider, to think. Since there will be another vote in November, before the vote, please provide the public with a full story regarding the tax impacts, including question 1, even though it was already passed. All of the voters need a clear and a full story of the two questions, the impacts. According to the email sent by the Office of the Superintendent on March 15th, about 5,009 people voted on both questions 1 and 2. That is about only 13% of the qualified citizen population of Bridgewater. This number raises question 2. What is the minimum percent of voters needed for a valid voting process? Essentially, could this small percent of the Bridgewater population make a representative decision for the entire town population? And also again, this small group of voters were provided only half of the information on tax consequences. We don't know the full story, okay? Lastly, I attended the BOE meeting in June, at which a resolution was put forward to start design work for referendum 1 and 2. But from previous communications, only if both referendum 2 and the November referendum question both pass, only then is the project authorized by the taxpayers. The district should not start on the design work related to referendum 2 additions related project because it is not fully passed yet. I would like to know, does this follow the procedure? Did you get the taxpayers' permission to begin without full authorization? What if additions is not passed in this November? Who will cover the cost? Okay, that's all I want to talk about the referendum. And regarding the superintendent, the contract for a superintendent, I really thank you for your hard work in the past, I don't know how many years. And but I know most of you vote yes. I know it is by the law, it should be automatically renewed. But we check, we know nothing about background, but I only checked the number. The salary, it increased by 7.6%. What is the logic for this? Why? And are there fundamental reasons for this huge increase in his salary? And I don't know. I need some reasons. And also, I know the board members were selected by the residents at Bridgewater. We hope you guys present us. But before you vote yes, did you do any survey or did you collect any information from the residents to see what we think of the superintendent? If not, I hope there should be something conducted before you vote yes. Thank you. That's all I want to talk about. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Xuemin Gu. I'm from Two Curtis Trail. I want to continue the conversation, even from last BOE meeting. I think the overall, I think last time in June, there are more than 20 students and parents voice their concern. I think there's a common theme in their concern, which is lack of transparency in the decision-making process, and also not parents are not actually included in the decision-making process. And I think this theme showing again today in the voting process for Mr. Bear's contract. I understand a couple of members provided rationale for why Mr. Bear deserve huge salary increase, a huge contract extension, right? But those information are not transparently shared with the parent or with the taxpayers. So basically, think about it. If you're working in a corporate, right? So if you get a contract extension, huge contract extension, or huge salary raise, you have to have some kind of rationale to back that up, right? You have to have for example, at the end of at the beginning of a contract, you did a baseline analysis, and then at the time of a promotion or salary raise, you need to provide justification why this is warranted, right? But those information is not very clearly shared. Only I mentioned, only here some of them have been mentioned here. One of them is the pass of the referendum. But think about it, the referendum is just a way to spend taxpayers' money. How can this justify as a accomplishment? I don't quite understand the rationale behind that, because for a superintendent, accomplishment is outcome of the education, but this is not shown here. Only talk about the pass of the referendum. I mean, this is, I think it's kind of amusing using this as a accomplishment for a huge salary increase and contract extension. I feel like you have to provide outcome of the education, because that's superintendent's responsibility, trying to provide education, and then we need to see the outcome of that improvement in the education outcome to justify any contract extension and a huge almost 8% salary increase. That's an annual increase of 8%.
This is not a back and forth.
Yeah,
this
I know.
Is your public comment time. That's it.
Yeah. So basically, and I think that this is can continue the theme from last meeting. So either this board or a superintendent. I mean, in terms of fair share information, is not very transparent. Only shared half of the story, which can give their decision a positive spin. I think this is a very dishonest, to say the least. And I know. A lot of, when you look at this agenda, a lot of decisions are made at the recommendation of superintendent. So that means he has a lot of power. And I'm sure when you guys, when all the board member voting for those decisions, I don't think you guys have the time and the resource to double check, to audit every decision, every recommendation from the superintendent. So basically, what you are doing here right now, actually, you are taking the responsibility for every decision superintendent is making. So you guys, some of them will up to election very soon. So you have to keep that in mind. So when you take yes, you have to really, before you vote yes or no, you have to make a thorough investigation, either talk to the taxpayers, or you have to make sure you can stand behind your decision. Thank you.
Can I just, no, okay.
Hello, good evening. My name is Siddharth Kamath. I live on 24 Terrace Lane. And I hope you had a good day. And again, I want to thank you for all the hard work you did. And I will claim ignorance. I don't know much about what went through your extension of contract and what you have done. However, what I think I would like to continue with is that if you could highlight as to what the achievements were in the past few years that kind of justifies this contract extension to common people, so that we know a little more, so that we don't have this maybe not right ideas about it's being dishonest or anything like that. So I would request that if there's a way for you to communicate more clearly as to what decisions have been made and what is justification, why we're making those decisions, and any more information you can provide to help ease the concern we have, that will be appreciated. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. This is Ji Ming Zheng, living on the 19th of Cliff Road, Bridgewater. So I'm the parent of a third grade student entering the fourth grade. I wanted to raise a point here regarding the lack of transparency. to the residents for the change or modification of AI program in the past 2 years since the Bridgewater superintendent come on board. I know this has been raised in the previous speeches. I just want to kind of emphasize that again, and this is especially for the numbers admitted for the grade 2 AI program that was reduced by nearly a half in the past 2 years in a row. And I would like to know and try to understand what was the justification for the significant change of such a well-established program that were operated in good order for the past likely more than 10 years. And would have been potentially also impacting my younger child who has not yet entered the first grade. So my older child was admitted to the second grade of the AI program about 2 years ago, notably right before the superintendent came on board. In that year, there was 2 AI classes for their second grade, with total around 34 students, AI students. Now that she's in the third grade, and the number slightly increased to around 44 AI students in her grade. And in the meanwhile, I also want to emphasize that according to my child information, there was 3 AI classes in the fourth grade that are approximately equal to around 50 to 60 AI students. However, according to the information that I learned regarding the second grade AI classes in the past academic year, there was only 1 AI class which had around, I think, only 23 AI students. And for this upcoming year, I don't know how many students have been admitted to the second grade AI program, but according to some information shared by a few parents who individually inquired the school district, and again, not from the public information, thus this is another example for lack of transparency. The school district was targeted to admit only 3 to 5% of the total Bridgewater school district, presumably from the first grade. So I assume there were around 500 students in that grade, aspirated from our high school numbers, equal to about 15 to 25 numbers. You guys probably know the exact numbers for this year, which is, to my opinion, still comparable to last year. So in summary, in the past 2 years in a row, since the superintendent came on board, the number of students admitted for the second grade AI program was reduced by a range of 30 to 50%. And this was a significant reduction, and it's been 2 years in a row, and seems there's no intention to reinstate that admission number. So from what I know publicly, I don't see the school district has communicated the justification of such a number reduction to the community, especially to parents with children enter the second grade in the future. For just lastly, I want to give an example which evaluation team came up with the number of 3 to 5% that I learned from some parents for this estimation for Bridgewater district, while in the past it admitted about, based on my teacher's information, about 8 to 10% for the AI program. So the superintendent and school district should have explained this to the residents in the past public meetings or in the school district email distribution, rather than in the situation that this information comes from the individual parents who inquired separately for their child or for their children who were concerned for the AI program. So I believe the transparency to Bridgewater residency, the residents and the taxpayers was part of the job that the superintendent should have done in the past 2 years and needs to improve in the original remaining 3 years of the contract, and reduce or erase the concern or confusion for the parents and students. So this kind of lack of transparency does not well justify the approval of the extended contract in the next 5 years. Thank you for your attention.
Any other public comment?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Hewitt. I'm from 544 Foothill Road. You guys may remember, I guess, in the last BOE meeting, myself and a bunch of other parents were here to ask about what the plan for next year's third grade AI program was. We were hearing that it was going to be just one classroom with up to 27, 28 students, and of course we expressed our concern I don't know if there has been any decision made, because in the last meeting we were told that was not the plan and the plan was not complete yet. And we were told to come back and ask the same question to follow up. So that's why we're here today, to understand what the plan is and if that can be shared. Thank you.
Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close that portion of public comment. Mr. Beers, do you have any response?
I can start with the easy part, and one is to my
Second grade and third grade.
Yes.
We actually went up to 30 students, so it did go to 30 students. So we make decisions about, and I did say this at the last meeting, you were correct, that we make decisions about the size of classes based on the number of students. So enrollment went from, I think it was 24 to start, maybe 26, I don't remember, and it climbed to 30. So we did subsequently make decisions. When we do that, this happens all the time. At the high school, at the middle school, you have enrollment that continues to climb in classes. We don't tend to send out communications to parents saying, like, you know, here's the size of a class, or we're creating a new class, but we are making decisions just like we said that we would. So, that is the answer.
I was going to talk a little bit about the historical piece. So just a quick, for anyone who's not aware, my name's Dan Fonder. Before I was in this role, I was the principal of Hamilton School, where the AI program is. So I was the principal there from 2010 to 2020. And what's been in place since I started as the principal of Hamilton School is the Board of Education has a class size policy. And so for all of the grades at all of the primary schools, you would take the number of students and you would see how many sections you need to fall within that parameter. And that's what's done for the AI sections. And so in the time that I was principal, from 2010 to 2020, the number of sections at each grade level ranged from 1 to 3. It was never less than 1, and it was never more than 3. So some years there was 1 second grade AI class, other years there were 2, and the other grade levels as well. I don't think there was ever a year that there were 3 second grade AI classes, but because there were some students who would join the cohort, sometimes there'd be 3 sections at one of the other grades. This is done the same way as the other cohorts of students, and sometimes it works out nicely and other times it doesn't. So if you had a situation where there were something like 25 students, which we've had, you'd have to make a decision of whether it's most appropriate to have 1 section of 25 or 2 classes that are 12 or 13 each. And so that's a harder one because both of those fall outside of the board parameter. If you get to a point where you're at the maximum or where the number could be split and it falls within the range, then it's an easier decision to make to have the 2 sections. So as Ms. Jones said, with the number of students that are in the cohort currently for 3rd grade AI next year, there's 2 sections. We have 2 teachers and 2 classes there.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, we don't do back and forth here. If you would like to have a conversation with Ms. Jones, you can call her office and set that up, but we don't do back and forth between the audience and the board at this time. Thank you. Do you want to continue with anything else or no? No. Okay.
I don't want to go too much into everything, but I will say that if you look at the special programs page, it has a lot of information on it. And I think some parents are getting confused, and they're conflating lack of transparency with that we're not giving you the exact number that somebody would need to do to get into a program. And the reason why is because the law actually says that you are creating these programs by comparing them to their chronological peers. So the only way that you can correctly do this is you have to test all kids, which, by the way, was another thing that was illegal in the past, or just wasn't illegal, it was terrible practice. Where we weren't following law is we didn't have gifted and talented for kindergarten, illegal, didn't have it for 1st grade. We're not offering it for all the individual content areas, because what you can't do is have like these gatekeeper scores that are composite. That means the only way a kid can receive gifted and talented services is if you score high in English and math, because some kids are exceptional in math and they're not in English, and other kids are exceptional in English and not in math. What we decided to do, because we understand that there is still and you don't see this kind of academically, like this kind of accelerated class in other districts. We made no attempt to remove this program, and we were completely transparent in that we sent surveys to all of our parents. Our last question on the survey was, does anyone want to be part of a focus group? We invited everyone in who wanted to be part of a focus group because we do value our community. My understanding, and I've been here 14, 15 years, and I've kind of watched some of this, and I have the book on when this was initiated. This program, the AI part of our Gifted and Talented program, was, implemented in the mid-'70s. And at the time when it was initially started, and for many years, it probably was 3 to 5% of students because they had all these other gifted services. So we had school-wide enrichment. You were probably here when we had school-wide enrichment across all our schools. At some point, there was a budget cut. It was probably 14 years or so ago, and someone made the decision to cut all our other gifted and talented programming and only leave one program that's a year of acceleration, which doesn't follow law. So what we were doing in the last 2 years is adding a continuum. So if you want to say in AI there's 3 to 5% of students who score that much chronologically, above their chronological peers, okay. Do we have more than 10% of students right now in gifted and talented? Yes, we grew our services because now we're following law. And this summer we are writing curriculum and we're writing small group investigations so that you can be identified for excelling in either English or math or another content area. We're creating cluster grouping in 4th grade math, which we hope to grow in both directions. Eventually, we hope to continue to grow these programs and grow our small group investigations up into the intermediate schools. We would love to go back to a program eventually of having school-wide enrichment so that all students have opportunities. So we're not actually narrowing the opportunities, we are growing the opportunities. I'm happy to speak to, but I can tell you that there's very few parents who at this point, like, people want a number. When they contact us, we're giving them the number. We're like, this is the national, this is where your child scored, like, this is our district, this is your school level. And there are students sometimes who are scoring in the 70th percentile, 60th percentile, who we're getting 3 and 4 appeals because people don't understand, like, that that's probably not going to place you into a full year of acceleration. Now, the good news on this AI program, in case people don't follow kind of the pathway of it, because I always find this part interesting, then I promise I'll stop. AI only actually runs through 5th grade. It ends in 5th grade, right? And then you go into E-classes in 6th grade. There's only one class that's accelerated, and that's the math class, because and by the way, we identify kids at all other points to be in that same accelerated math and wind up in algebra in 7th grade, because English, science, and social studies stop being accelerated. They become enriched. So you're in 4th grade accelerated English, which is like 5th grade English, and then 5th grade, which is like 6th grade, and then you just go into 6th grade English. So it actually hits a dead end. Now, just in case you're wondering, 2 things I looked at recently, because I think this is kind of interesting. When you look at our kids in the high school, so this just, I hope, makes people feel better. When you look at the percentage of our kids in AP classes, I would say, 15% of those students come from AI. So what does that mean?
So that means 85%
yeah, I was gonna, thank
were not
goodness you were
in the
doing it.
AI program.
We have 85% of our students managed out of our AP cohort don't come from there. So then I looked more specifically at AP Calc, the BC version of AP Calc, and I looked at it because, like I said, math is the only place that remains accelerated. And again, it's like 64% of students who are in this are not coming from AI. And you can, so it's not gonna hurt you, but the point of AI is you need that because we can't meet your needs in the classroom, and that's the purpose of that gifted service. We can't meet your needs in the classroom, and so we have to actually do a year of acceleration. What that determines later on, it doesn't matter because we have all these pathways in, and so like people should understand that that's what we're doing, and we're not being transparent. And I'll tell you, when we get to the parent information night this year, we'll be able to speak to it, even better, because really the person who ran the program is no longer here, and it transitioned over, and we're in a transition right now. But now we're following law, we're following statute, we're being responsive to parents, and we're increasing opportunities for kids.
Thank
If
you,
I
Ms.
can,
Jones.
if I can just add one thing, there was some mention of changes coming in with Bob, and I say this as a parent who had a child that went through AI and another who didn't, who took a different path but still ended up in the AP honors track. And that is not what has happened when Bob has come in. I mean, he has worked to expand opportunities and equity as far as getting the most students in there and then getting these, as Karen mentioned, the other programs, which are so important because it's not just this one program that is the only path to success. And you know, certainly Bob has not been anything but expansive and equity and what's best for our kids. So I just wanted to mention that. And you know, I'm very supportive of the program, don't get me wrong. You know, I think it has its place, but there are all these other programs that we need to support it, and there's tons of different kinds of students in our district.
And along the same lines, there was a report done. So you want transparency, you want data, you want methodology. We presented a report from in February from Dr. Cortina, which laid this out. And it came with a report that's available online. And we did it through a methodical way. We try to review our programs so that we are transparent, and we did do that, and we communicated it. And then it fell into everything. Mrs. Jones, Dr. Fonder, and Mr. Beers are very passionate about our students in this district. And they'll do everything to do it. And this is one thing they showed. They had many reports. We did one on special ed this year also. We did one on transportation. We've done a lot of different studies to see what's going on methodically through. Those are some of the successes we've seen and grown. So we are doing our due diligence. I have to engage that sometimes you only, to be transparent, sometimes you only hear what you want to hear. Please go back in and look for the information. We're getting it out there. I asked Mr. Stars to pull up the website with the Gets in Talent information on, if you can put in the monitors. It's all there. The criteria is there. The information's there. I don't know what else you want more. If you want more, there's a contact there. Reach out to Mrs. Jones. She can get you the contact and the information. We're not withholding information. If you ask, we'll give it to you. At a board meeting, the board members here don't give out the information. Our job is oversight. You know, we get a lot of information, we process it, we make decisions. These individuals are staff members. They run the district every day. They know the operations, they know the ins and the outs, they know where the light switches are, they know where the emergency exits are. That's not our job. They know where the buses come and where they're going to transport. They do that day in and day out. They are very good at what they do. We trust them with our kids. It's the most important, valuable resource. So they have done a great job and put this forward. So please look at the information on the website. Ask questions to the administration. Dr. Fonder, seen it for 10 years. One of the things, less kids getting in, we're graduating 700 kids, and there's only 550 in first grade. There's a 25% reduction in student numbers there. So you're going to have less numbers in the classes too.
Barry, we also had parents who didn't accept the enrollment this year because they wanted to keep their kids in the homeschool and participate in the small group investigations too. Yeah.
And we're giving the choices they didn't have before either. And I know a lot of parents that did want to move their homeschool. So we are expanding the program, and I think they're doing well.
Sure, go ahead.
And there's just one comment I do want to make for the public, because it did come up. We are a Board of Education of committees. All right, so what that means is we have representatives, obviously elected by the public, and we have a number of committees in the reports you hear at the beginning of each agenda. We have very active committee members and committee meetings, right, where a lot of these items, really all of these items that appear on this agenda, are vetted prior to them being voted on. I don't have all of these powers that were described, and what I can promise you is that the folks sitting at the table here certainly engage in inquiry. They ask a lot of very good questions for the purpose of transparency and representation of the community that they represent. All right, so I just want to make it clear that I'm not a dictator who says we're doing all of these things. We're a board of committees, and any ideas that we have, any programmatic shifts, go through that mechanism before they come for a vote here on the, on an agenda and for the public. So I just want to really be clear on that. And, I support the committees. I can tell you that I've worked in a few different school districts, and the Bridgewater-Raritan Board of Education here has, I'll say they are the most professional and serious about their committee assignments than any other place I've worked. So I think as the public, you should be proud of the work that's being done. That doesn't mean you disagree with everything, but you should know that things are fully vetted by people other than me before they appear on this agenda. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beers. And I don't normally respond to public comment, but there was one statement that I want to respond to. There was a statement that referendum is just a way to spend taxpayer money, and I wholeheartedly disagree with that. It is certainly funded by the taxpayers, and we are appreciative of that, and we recognize the burden of the taxes in this area. However, we have 1 million square feet of school. We have 11 different schools with numerous different buildings. Work needs to be done on them. This isn't just spending money. This is improving our district, making the schools better for our children, making the classrooms better for our children, making the full experience better for our students. It is not just a way to spend money, and that is, I don't know what else to say about that. Unless there are any other response, I'm going to move on to old business.
I was going to wait till old business. Should I wait till old business?
We're up to old business.
All right. So I wanted to comment also on the referendum, and also there were other things that I kind of withheld from saying in terms of the extension of the contract, because I just tried to get to the point. When we went to the NJSBA School Board Association, what was that? It was like a conference, workshop. There was 5 board members, and Mr. Beers went. Almost every one of the courses that I really focused on taking was about funding projects, funding educational projects, funding facilities. And what I learned was that the majority of those courses spoke about referendums, and they were led by superintendents and business administrators from all over the state of New Jersey, and it was standing room only in almost every class that I took, which means that there are districts all over the state with board members, superintendents, and BAs that are interested and examining ways to fund facilities. And I can tell you that not one of them they weren't Switzerland. They weren't like, we have to take a neutral position on this. And a lot of the language that was used in terms of, what do we call it when there's no tax, tax neutral. Yeah, I mean, this is very common language across this topic, across multiple districts. So it's not unusual, and again, I think, when we, I don't really love justifying my position, because when you look at like market value and why we made the call to put forth the to approve what we approved. I mean, if you look at like what superintendents are making, it was a justifiable increase. It really was, and that's really all I had on that. And
Ma'am, we do not engage in back and forth. No, you've had your public comment. We've heard it, and that is it. We don't. No, ma'am. Your public comment has been taken in. If you want to ask a question, then you can email the board, or you can email the administration. You can email the board, or you can email the administration. We do not respond to the public. Ma'am, you are welcome to email us, and we will respond to your questions. We have heard your public comment. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so no response. Just one.
We have heard your public comment. Thank you, ma'am. Is there any other old business? You got another? Okay.
I just wanted to congratulate the class of 2023. It was a privilege to attend both graduation ceremonies, and I wanted to commend both Mr. Hemberger and Ms. Corliss on, one, making a transition from like having a scheduled outside graduation to an inside one, and also to Ms. Corliss for, she's the executor of keeping things on time and everybody where they're supposed to be.
Yes, thank you.
Can I have some money?
All right, so is there any new business? We're up to item number 15.
I would like to comment, or if someone wants to go before me,
I think you're up.
So first, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank the Board of Education here at Bridgewater-Raritan for renewing my contract through June 2028. I'm excited, to continue serving as your superintendent for the foreseeable future. Your support and confidence in my abilities and our collective accomplishments are appreciated. I firmly believe that Bridgewater-Raritan is a special place, and I plan to work collaboratively with the entire community to make Bridgewater-Raritan the top district in the state of New Jersey. I'm excited to embark on another year of fostering growth and making institutional changes that impact our students' lives in a positive way. I'm sincerely grateful for the chance to continue contributing to the exceptional standards upheld by this community. As we've heard, continuity is a key element of any strong organization, and I appreciate the opportunity to provide this to all the stakeholders who are within our school community and community at large. So you should know we have a busy year coming up. We have a climate survey. Our final referendum question to fund full-day kindergarten is in November. Strategic planning, school start times, our yearly budget, facilities, and then the execution of our referendum. So again, I want to thank you for supporting and believing in our shared mission for the Bridgewater-Raritan schools, and I'm ecstatic to be a part of it. So once more, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Is there any other new business? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned. Our next meeting is August 22nd, right here. Thank you.